And way back in 1893, some of the most famous names in the sport have got this race on their palmares over the years, and some of the fastest sprinters in world cycling are here. We're positioned with the finishing line just alongside the Stade Baudouin Stadium. And as you can see, an illustrious winners list. Pascal Ackermann, wearing the German national champions jersey, was our winner last year. Arnaud Demar 2 years ago was the winner, and André Greipel, a two-time winner, also in the field here for this one. Grootemarkt there, the Grand Place in Brussels, the central square, a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the centre of the city. The European Commission, the executive branch of the European Union, where the day-to-day business is done. And the European Parliament building itself, the legislative centre. Some of the major sites of Brussels. There's Montgomery Square, named after the senior British Army officer who fought in both World Wars. And the Palace of Justice, the law courts, the most important court building in the whole of Belgium. Some of the sites of the Belgian capital, and Zonian Forest just to the southeast of Brussels. The greenery not far away. Well, there's the National Stadium, which hosted athletics just 24 hours ago, but the focus just in the shadow of the main stand, very much on two wheels today. And this Brussels Cycling Classic. The riders have been out on the course for quite a while now. 2.5 hours. Brian Coquard, one of the key riders here, French sprinter, 8 wins for him in 2019. And there's Daryl Impey, stage winner in Brioude in this year's Tour de France, in the South African national champions jersey. André Greipel, the winner of this race in 2013 and 14. Wins have been hard to come by for a little while for him. Nicolo Bonifacio, the Italian fast man, won a couple of races in Belgium inside the past week, so Bonifacio in form. Timothy Dupont, 4 top 5 finishes here in Belgium in the last couple of weeks. His form is good. And there's Nicky Terpstra, who crashed out of the Tour, but a former winner of the Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix in recent years. Amaury Capiot, 2nd and 3rd on stages of the recent Tour of Denmark, riding for the Belgian Sport Vlaanderen squad. There's Jasper Stuyven, who won the overall prize in the recent Deutschland Tour. And Laurens de Vries, 2nd in Paris Tour a few years ago, hoping to turn back the clock today. One of the bright young things, a 21-year-old Belgian Jasper Philipsen, a stage winner in the Tour Down Under right at the start of the year, and rode well in the Binkbank Tour recently. He's a teammate of that man there, Alexander Kristoff, winner of Gent-Wevelgem this year and a former winner of the Tour of Flanders and Milan-San Remo, one of the biggest draws in this race today. But a man of the moment this summer, Caleb Ewan from Australia, 3 stage wins in the Tour de France. Oliver Naesen, some near misses in 2019, 2nd in Milan-San Remo, 3rd in Gent-Wevelgem. Hoping to go one better today. Yves Lampaert in the field as well, and Alvaro Hodge, 7 wins this year for the 22-year-old Colombian, including a stage of the recent Binkbank Tour. Former winner here, Arnaud Demar, back in town, 2 years on, a 2-time Tour de France stage winner, Milan-San Remo winner as well. and last year's champion in the Brussels Cycling Classic, Pascal Ackermann, the 2018 German national champion. Well, the gun misfired, but the peloton certainly didn't as they rolled out at the start of this race from Etterbeek. And after a brief neutralised zone, the race proper got underway. And we had that usual scenario where riders are looking to try and form the breakaway, constant attacks, riders hoping that they will be allowed to leave the peloton and form the break of the day as they headed out through the forest. And it didn't take too long before the breakaway started to form inside the first few kilometres or so. The peloton not resisting for too long today. Sometimes it can take quite a while. As the peloton headed past the African Museum. Changeable weather conditions. Let's take a closer look at the route. As you can see, in the eastern side of Brussels, and we head out through Overijse, down through Waterloo into Wallonia, and then back up towards the capital city, coming in on the western side of Brussels and into the finish in the northwest, to the northwest of the city. 12 climbs in total. And as that picture suggests, rather changeable weather conditions. We have had a couple of rain showers here at the finish, but at the moment it is dry. And we have 6 riders in the lead, and it's the 6-rider group that got away early on. Clément Carisset from the Israel Cycling Academy, Etienne Van Empel of Neri Sottoli Cell Italia, Oscar Riesebeek from Rumpot Charles, his teammate, Elmer Renders, Cyril Gauthier, Vital Concept B&B Hotels, experienced French rider, and Lionel Tamignot from Wallonie-Bruxelles, the Belgian rider. They were joined by Petr Rikunov of Gazprom, but the Russian rider crashed, and as a result of that had to drop back to the peloton. So 7 became 6. As you can see, 85 kilometres to go to the finish. And the maximum lead for this group is a little over 3 minutes. It's been eaten into, as you can see, 2 minutes and 7 seconds the gap at the moment. That's Van Empel riding at the back of the group there with the yellow sleeves. Van Empel, a Dutch rider racing for the Neri Sottoli Cell Italia team, and Van Empel second overall in the Tour of Albania early this year and 3rd in the Tour of Taiwan. So a couple of decent results in stage races around the world. Rumpot Charles are well represented in this breakaway group by Riesebeek and Renders. Riesebeek 4th in Veenendaal not so long ago, and Renders as well. His best result this year, he was 8th in Le Samin, which is one of the early season races in the spring. Rider at the front, Cyril Gauthier. Gauthier with a long career behind him already at 31 now, and a few wins along the way too. This is Carisset, the Frenchman from the Israel Cycling Academy squad. All the big hitters, those we expect to be in the running for victory at the end of this race, are currently keeping their powder dry, sitting in the peloton, but with 84k to go at 2 minutes, they are very much within range of these leading riders. Riders near Braine-le-Comte at the moment, having just gone through Ronquière in the last few minutes, with just over 100 kilometres in their legs at this point in proceedings. Nice steady pace for this leading group. They've been working well together throughout the day. As I mentioned right at the start, they were in the breakaway from the first few minutes of the race. And they've managed to stay there without any undue difficulty. Here we are, first look at the front of the main field, the peloton. Far from flat out at this stage, just very keen to keep the breakaway within range, within comfortably reelable distance. Riders on the right-hand side of the picture from Total Direct Energy. Bonifacio will be their man for a sprint at the end, and De Koenig Quick Step with a rider at the front. Yves Lampaert in their squad today, and Alvaro Hodge as well, who won a stage in the Big Bang Tour recently, hoping for another fast finish today. Bora Hansgrohe on the left of your picture. That's the team of Pascal Ackermann, last year's winner. All these teams just keen to keep an eye on what's going on. The white jersey with the little black trim just to the right of centre, just being obscured by a rider from Trek Segafredo at the moment. That's the Arkea Samsic team of Andre Greipel. And Groupama FDJ in the blue shorts with the red left sleeve and the blue right one. That's the team of the French sprinter Arnaud Demar. Demar looking for some strong end-of-season form. Meanwhile, towards the back end of the field, we're just looking at Christophe Laporte there from Cofidis, the French sprinter. And a couple of the riders from the development team Sunweb are just in front of him, Ben Katterberg being one of them. There is Laporte, who doesn't appear to be any difficulty at all, and a quick comfort break being taken by Rikunov. Number 126 there, he was in the breakaway earlier on. But as you can see, quite relaxed at the moment, having dropped back to the main field. Pressure not quite on. Pace high without being flat out. .82 kilometers remaining. Average speed at the moment around about the 42 kilometers an hour mark. That's Lionel Tamigno at the rear of the breakaway group. Mentioned the changeable weather here in Belgium today. Little shower for our leading group of 6 at the moment, and that advantage, which maximised at about 3 minutes 5, slowly being chipped away. Under 2 minutes now, with 81 kilometres to go through Enoyères. And the next climb is just a few kilometres away. Climb number 6 of 12, Rue des Rabault. Just a few minutes' time they'll reach that. Little bit of shelter from the rain provided by the trees overhanging the road. Some famous winners of this race over the years. Robbie McEwen is the all-time record holder for this event, which was, as I mentioned at the start, used to be Paris-Brussels, now the Brussels Cycling Classic. 5 times the Australian was the winner in the noughties. Recent winners, Ackermann, Demar, Tom Bonen, former winner of this, and Dylan Groenewegen as well, when he was starting to hit the top of the podium. He won this race as well a few seasons ago. Andre Greipel is here in the field today. And if you go back further, some of the great champions have got this on their list of wins, including Eddy Merckx, Felice Gimondi, who passed away recently, the Italian champion, and Roger de Vlaeminck, Rick van Looy as well, and Jan Raas, to name but just a couple of others, Freddie Martins. So it's an illustrious list of winners over the years in this one of the grand old bike races of the professional cycling calendar. Slowly starting to wind up the pace a little bit here now. And it's the teams with sprinters, those who fancy their chances of being in there at the end, who are patrolling matters at the front of this group. "25 teams in this race today, including a good number of World Tour squads. And the way Bora Hansgrohe are riding, one senses that Pascal Ackermann is feeling good so far this afternoon. He's got plenty of experience backing him up. Maciej Bodnar, Oscar Gatto, Juraj Sagan, a three-time Slovakian national champion, Andreas Schillinger, Michael Schwartzman and Rudiger Selig. Powerful lineup. Laporte still loitering towards the rear end of the peloton here. It really is starting to come down quite quickly, the advantage. It's come down by half a minute in the short time that we've been on air. Only just over a minute and a half now here for these six. Little reminder, if you've just joined our coverage, it's Clément Carisset from the Israel Cycling Academy, Etienne van Empel from Neri Sotoli Italia, Oscar Riesebeek from Rumpot Charles, his teammate, Elmer Renders, Cyril Gauthier from Vital Concept, Lionel Tamignot from Wallonie-Bruxelles. Well, these were the riders who chanced their arm to get in the early breakaway in the opening minutes of the race. And a lead of just over 3 minutes has been cut in half. Riesebeek there, number 164. Still working well together, but I think they know where this break is heading. Sky still grey overhead, but fortunately the rain mostly holding off. The road surface not too greasy. Tamignot waving the flag for the Wallonie-Bruxelles team, the 23-year-old. He won the Grand Prix Créquillon, named after Claude Créquillon, a former Belgian rider. He won that race last year. There's Gauthier. We've seen him in a number of breakaway groups in the Tour de France in the past. And Gauthier, number 214 there, making his presence felt in this race. As Riesebeek just takes a seat at the back of the line as his teammate leads the way. Renders. Certainly helped the race to settle down when these riders escaped early on. Just sets a pattern for the rest of the action. But it's all starting to get lively behind. Mitchelton Scott with an experienced team here as well. Daryl Impey, their main man. Michael Albacini is here. Chris Juhl Jensen. Michael Hepburn as well in their squad today. And as the pace goes up, it starts to thin out. And at the back of the peloton, we can see David van der Poel of Corendon Circus just struggling to hold the wheels there at the rear end of the pack. too many have dropped off the pace so far in the race, but that could be about to change as it goes up. And we're just looking there at Preben van Hekke from Sport Vlaanderen Baloise, and also Stijn de Volder. So de Volder looks like he's really suffering and struggling to stay with the peloton. Can't hold the pace there, de Volder. And he, a former winner of the Tour of Flanders back in 2008 and 2009. Still in the peloton after all this time at the age of 40. So hats off to him, actually, for such a long and illustrious career, still being out there on the roads. There's some of these riders being spat out the back now, and it looks as if several of the team Novo Nordisk riders as well struggling to stay with the pack. Less than a minute now from the leaders to the front of the peloton. Bora Hansgrohe riders doing much of the damage. Weather can't quite make its mind up out on the route. .75 kilometers remaining as the race heads to Virginal-Sam. And we're 3 or 4K away from the fourth climb, Rue Cardinal Mercier. A little bit of looking round. Who's there? What damage has been done by that acceleration in the last few minutes? One of the riders from Astana just getting his nose in front as we go back with the leading group now. But for how long will they be the leading group? Will the peloton just back off a little bit once it gets to within about half a minute? Well, as you can see, the gap closing all the time. Astana and AG2R represented just off the front of the peloton. It's just starting to splinter. Groupama FDJ with the rider getting up there too, and Juraj Sagan, I think, is coming off the front of the peloton to try and join this counter. Once you get stuck towards the back end, there's not an awful lot of room to do much about it when it starts to get active at the front. You can see a few of them just venturing onto the grass momentarily. One of the riders from De Koning Quickstep there who just went off the front to try and counter. Coming down all the time. 40 seconds to gap on the Rue Cardinal Mercier. It's the 7th climb of the day, 7.5%. Taken steadily by a group who've worked well and harmoniously and diligently together throughout the afternoon, but to no avail. It's just a matter of when, not if, these riders bridge the gap. Those who attempted to escape the peloton are finding it rather difficult because nobody wants to let them go. Just at the back there, Tamino losing contact with his colleagues in the breakaway group. And happy to just wave everybody through. Astana are keen to get a rider to the front of the race here. Laurens de Vreese is the latest to try and head off, and as you can see, a little bit of a gap opening up here. De Vreese fully committed to this attempt to really inject some pace and get away off the front of the peloton on this climb. Rain falling a little more persistently at the moment, still dry here at the finish, but that's 73 kilometers away. Less than half a minute now, as the weather takes a turn for the worst. Carisse hopes that he can get a second wind. Keeps his fluid levels topped up and rejoins the rear end of the breakaway. Tamino's time at the front is done. He will be soon caught by the peloton. Tamino having a little look just to see who it is, and will then decide whether he wants to join in. So a second group starting to form on the road. And Tamino looks as if he's got a teammate up there with him as well now. He's keen to try and take up the pace. Wallonie Bruxelles, one of the smaller teams in the race, but certainly prominent today so far and trying to help to animate the racing at every opportunity. Here are the leaders. So just for a couple of minutes, it's held at about 30 seconds or so. And will this counter group work well together? You can see most of the Bora Hansgrohe squad there grouped up on the left-hand side of the road. Thought they were just easing off for a minute once they know that they'd very much got these riders close at hand. As soon as you bring the breakaway back in, everybody else starts to sense an opportunity to get away. Well, proper Belgian bike racing conditions here. Look at that rain sweeping across the fields. Just having a look there at Martin Salmon. Salmon off the front. He's racing for the development team Sunweb squad. But as you can see, he's rather caught between a rock and a hard place at the moment. Carisse doing a steady turn on the front at the moment. Among those in that chasing group, De Vreese of Astana, who we already saw. Christian Jensen is there. Anthony Turgis and Simone Velasco. And our friend Lionel Tamino, who haven't quite given up the ghost, having dropped back from that leading group. And Salmon realising that he was banging his head against a brick wall, rather, on his own there in the wind and the rain. And you see, you just take your foot off the gas for a second and suddenly you're swamped. So conditions worsening a little, and the riders on the race radio just being advised to take things a little easier. Emils Liepens is the other rider in the second group from the Wallonie-Bruxelles team. Liepens, a Latvian rider, the overall winner of the Baltic Chain Tour last year. Here's confirmation of that second group. So half a dozen riders chasing. De Vreese of Astana, Christian Jensen from Mitchelton Scott. Also Simone Velasco, Anthony Turgis, and Emils Liepens, and Lionel Tamino from Wallonie-Bruxelles. The six chasers are 22 seconds behind the leading group here. They're on, as you can see, the latest climb, the Rue d'Ytre, hailing number 8 of 12. And it all suddenly looks rather dark and autumnal. It was an absolutely glorious morning in the Belgian capital today, but out in the countryside, the weather taking a turn for the worse. Quite a few dark clouds outside our commentary position on the finish line as well now. Dry here for the moment, but not for the cyclists. Just at the back there, Alexis Guerin from the Delco Marseille-Provence team. And number 221 is Dimitri Payskens, another one of the Wallonie-Bruxelles riders. 104 was David van der Poel from Corendon Circus. We saw him near the back as well earlier on. He's still there, but hanging on. That anxious look behind there from Riesebeek. And with all the spray, the visibility a little bit better without the shades, I think. A couple of them deciding. Gradients just slow them down a little bit. $67K to go still. As David Lozano heads towards the back of the group. Tom de Vriend as well from Ronty-Gobert. 37 there from AG Deuxième is Stijn Vandenberg. That's Ackerman's team at the front. Pascal Ackerman looking to make it 2 wins in a row here at the Brussels Cycling Classic. Decent year for him, couple of wins in the Giro d'Italia earlier in the summer. You can see how carefully they're just taking that corner, greasy road surfaces. 46 seconds, the peloton behind the front of the race now. .66 to go as they head towards Tubize and Braine-le-Château in the next few minutes. Still pressing on. Goodness me, it's a big ask trying to keep that peloton at bay for any great length of time, unless the peloton are happy to just leave them there and create what would be something of a holding pattern. Gaultier grits his teeth, second in line. So we have Gaultier, Renders, Riesebeek, Van Empel and Carissé still at the front of the race. If you've just joined our coverage, 65k to go in this 200-kilometre race. These riders have been in the lead throughout the whole event so far, more or less. They escaped early in the opening minutes. Well, the flag had barely dropped when the breakaway formed, and their lead at one point was just over 3 minutes, so they were never really given too much leeway by the rest of the field. And we've got 6 riders chasing these few at the front, and they're just 20 seconds behind them. We may see them in the background at some point shortly. This is the chasing group. And the peloton are 40 seconds from the front of the race now as the latest, so just a little closer than the graphic is suggesting. Everyone through safely. And that long, thin line of riders in the peloton indicating the pace has gone up. Plenty still wanting to force their way to the front, make sure they know exactly what's going on, but the rest of the field just strung out down the road. So having come down very, very quickly, it's just stabilised for a few minutes. Here we are with group number 2 on the rain-soaked roads of Belgium. And just a slight easing off from the peloton now. And that long, thin line suddenly spreads out across the road. The riders taking the opportunity to just move themselves up, given this a lull in the action, relatively speaking. You can see the white jerseys with the red sleeves to the right-hand side of the road there towards the front. That's the Lotto Soudal team, the teammates of Caleb Ewan. They'll be tucked in there, trying to stay out of harm's way. This is the front of the race. And here's the chase group with Christian Jensen there from Mitchelton Scott, Lawrence de Fraser, Simone Velasco, Anthony Turgis and Emils Liepins from Latvia. So this little group halfway between the front of the race and the peloton. Arnaud Demar's teammates heading to the front at the moment in the main field. Demar with an excellent record in this event in recent years. The winner in 2017, he was second the year before that, and he was third as well in 2014. 3 times on the podium in the Brussels Classic. And keen to get some end-of-season results after missing the Tour de France. So these riders a minute behind the front of the race. Groupama here for one thing, and that's the victory today. Not worried about getting in breakaways. Duchesne, Bonnet, Konovalobos, Le Gap, Sinkeldam and Guarnieri here to support Demar in his bid for victory. And as ever, no real sign of any of the big favourites at the moment. That's a good sign. Just letting their teammates bring them towards the finish. You can see the chasers in the background there. Camera clearly foreshortening it a little, but 20 seconds or so. But in sight and very much in mind, and Juul Jensen continues to pull at the front of the first chasing group here. Chris Juul Jensen, former winner of his home Tour of Denmark, stage winner in the Tour of Switzerland. Lawrence de Fraser, one of the first riders to try and form this breakaway group. He was the first one to head off the front of the peloton. De Fraser, who we featured at the top of the programme as well, second in Paris Tour a few years ago, back in 2012 now. Strong finish in Paris-Roubaix a couple of years ago in the top 15 in that race as well. No major placings at all so far this season, though, for De Fraser. Experienced rider, he's been with Astana since 2015, former Wanty Group Gobert rider. He left there at the end of the 2014 season. 30 years of age now, the Belgian. And De Koning quick step with Ilio Kesa pulling at the front of the peloton. As ever, a strong lineup for them today. Yves Lampaert in there as well, and Dries Stevenijns and Alvaro Hodge. To name but 3 or 4. Hodge certainly in good form recently, the young Colombian, and a man to watch out for. The finish, by the way, to this race, the last kilometre, it's a straight road. No road furniture or technical corners to worry about. It's wide, it's straight, but it is slightly uphill all the way. So patience in terms of sprinting will be key. Biding your time and timing your effort well. Go too early and you will suddenly find riders sweeping past you in the closing meters. Gaultier doing a long turn at the front here, anxiously looking round, passing the baton. Well, the gaps have steadied in the last few minutes. As the breakaway starts to dry out after the latest hefty shower en route, as they head back up north towards Brussels and the finish. There's the Lion of Waterloo, and what an impressive sight it is as well. Carasay still pulling hard on the front. Here are the chasers now. We're just tucked in behind Leepins of Wallonie-Bruxelles. Number 145 is Simone Velasco. Here's Jules Jensen, who's done plenty of the work here in trying to close this gap. And De Vries never slow to help out as well. Groupama FDJ with Antoine Duchesne and Ignatius Konovalovas doing plenty of the work towards the front. And De Koning Quick Step just giving way at the moment. We saw Ilio Kesa just a couple of minutes ago. Samuel Gaze as well was up there for them. Lotto Soudal there, the team of Caleb Ewan with the red sleeves. Just shows you how much the shot we saw a minute or two ago was foreshortening it. Still a gap to be closed. And a gap that isn't coming down, actually, from the front of the race to this first group of chasers. The arrow-like front of the peloton shows that they mean business now. Okay, so just moves off the front. So we can see some of the teams of the sprinters now coming to the fore, directing operations. UAE Emirates on the right-hand side of your picture. It's the team of Alexander Kristoff, Jasper Philipsen as well in their lineup today. They're quite happy to let everybody else do the work at the moment. First time we've seen one of the Lotto Soudal riders come to the front. But De Koning Quick Step are happy to share the workload with Groupama FDJ and Lotto Soudal, each team with two riders there on the front of the peloton at the moment. Well, they've shaved about half a dozen seconds off the lead from the front of the race since the last time we saw them. This is the first chase group. Turgis just slotting in at the rear end of it. Juul Jensen on the front. And that gap now is closing all the time. So 5 looks as if it will become 11 before too long. Peloton closing in as well. Little upsurge in the pace in the last 2 or 3 minutes once more. Really strung out now. As we head towards the last 50 kilometres of racing. 137 kilometres covered so far. Coming up shortly, the 9th claim, Chaussée d'Alsemberg. Oh, they're tantalisingly close now. Turgis digs in, up the incline. De Vries on the left of your picture. Case is still working hard at the front. The whole race is just starting to get closer together now. Well, they've done well to hold them at bay as long as they have. And they're not about to give up anytime soon, but it's a long, long way to the finish. Well, we've known there's only one outcome here for a long time now. It's just a matter of when, not if. It's a spirited counter. Turgis, Juul Jensen, the 2 riders at the front. Velasco of Neri Sotoli just takes over from Juul Jensen. Look how tightly packed they are across the road. Groupama FDJ, Bora Hansgrohe and De Koning. Quick Step all packed in on the left-hand side of the road. Well, Gauthier with 5 wins in his career over the years. He's not going to add to that total today, but he certainly helped to animate the race and has made his presence felt. Got his sponsors some publicity too, as have these 2 from Rumpot Charles. Riesebeek and Renders. Still working well, those chasers. Chipping away, diligently starting to close the gap, but knowing that this lot are not far behind them. And there are some big engines there to power the peloton along, to bring those sprinters towards the finish. in towards the last 50 kilometres of this race. Well, it must be agonising for those caught between the pack and the front, because they can see the leading riders and have been able to for quite some time, but they don't appear to be getting any closer to them. Stubborn resistance from this hardy little group at the front. All to play for with 50 kilometres remaining in the Brussels Cycling Classic. All the big favourites still in contention for the race, all neatly tucked away in that main field there, hiding among the wheels until it really matters at the business end. But the early opportunists are staying out there as long as they possibly can. Led at the moment by Cyril Gauthier, Elmer Renders, Oscar Riesebeek, Etienne Van Empel and Clément Carisset still there. We did have Lionel Tamignot and Peter Rikunov, but those two riders have dropped out. Rikunov crashed actually, but went back to the peloton, and Tamignot was in this lead group for quite some time before dropping back. Those two in the peloton. And that peloton just half a minute back on the road. So they're on the Chaussée d'Alsemberg at the moment. Ninth climb of 12 en route today. Regular short little rhythm-busting, strength-sapping obstacles for the peloton to contend with. But this, traditionally, very much a sprinter's race, as we see Nicolas Deboumarché from Trek Segafredo just easing up, and then just out of the back there, Brian Kamstra of Novo Nordisk, front of the race. Well, a glorious morning in Belgium has given way to a decidedly autumnal afternoon. Roads just starting to dry out following the latest showers. Well, no Belgian race is complete without a few cobbles. So, just 100 metres or so between these riders here and those at the front. Someone trying to get off their drive there. Do hope they wait for a couple of minutes. Let everybody through. Little acceleration from Juliensen at the front, and Turgis goes with him, and you can clearly see that Liepens is finding it hard to stay with this group at the moment. He looks as if he's absolutely on the rivet, trying to hold the rear wheel of Laurens de Vries from Astana inside the last 50k. And if you've just joined our coverage, all of the pre-race favourites are still in there, still tucked in the peloton. And we've got some of the fastest sprinters in the world, including Caleb Ewan, Won 3 stages of the Tour de France this year. Alexander Kristoff is here, Arnaud Demar, and last year's winner Pascal Ackermann, to name but a few. Alvaro Hodge as well from De Koning Quick-Step, Brian Cocard, the Frenchman. Sam Brand on the back of the peloton at the moment. Sam Brand, a British rider in his 2nd full season with the team. We've seen a lot of Cyril Gauthier on the front. A big effort from Jol Jensen. They are making inroads all the time. Turgis just following the Dane. And now doing a turn at the front is Simone Velasco. Velasco, just 23 years of age. In the chase group today, winner of the Trofeo Laigueglia this year, 1-day race in Italy. Short, sharp incline. They have almost bridged the gap. There are some very threatening clouds hanging overhead. Unfortunately, the rain's staying away and the peloton drying out in the last 20 minutes or so. So Groupama FDJ, Bora Hansgrohe, De Koning Quick-Step, and also AG Desert represented at the front. AG Desert with Oliver Naassen in their team today. Naassen, who's had some good results this year, will be looking to bag a win if possible, but wouldn't be one of the biggest favourites for this one if it does come down to a sprint. Just starting to rain here at the finish. It's a greasy looking road surface in the finishing straight. Well, it took them a while, but they finally made it. And the first rider to do so was Liepins of Wallonie-Bruxelles. And that leading group has just more than doubled in size. So now we're just left with the lead group, and here it is: De Vreese, Jol Jensen, Carisse, Van Empel, Velasco. Riesebeek, Arenders, Turgis, Gauthier and Liepins. And 40 seconds behind them, the main field. So some extra pairs of legs to add some impetus here at the front. But it does just help to maintain the shape of the race, so we have a little lead group. There's a stressful unpredictability for these riders here when the breakaway is brought back too quickly. The two riders calling back to the team cars, wanting some clothing. There's Daryl Impey in the South African national champions jersey, just fiddling with his rear pocket. There's the top left of your picture, just disappearing out of the screen at the moment. Well, the extra tops are coming off now as we really get down to business. That's Michael Hepburn, the Australian. Mind you, looking at the weather here at the finish, he might regret handing that over. So 43 to go, which means they're heading through Dorp. And the 11th climb of 12. Brenner Put almost on the horizon. So 3/4 of a minute then, back to the peloton. From the front of the race. Jul Jensen on the front. Hands over to De Vreese in the pale blue of Astana. Still do it old school look, the chalkboard on the left-hand side. Still the best way to do it in many respects. So in real terms, with 43k to go, their advantage at 46 seconds is a slender one. And here is Brenner Put. Gradient of 8.7% here, hence why they're out of the saddle. The rider on the front at the moment is Velasco. First race back in Europe for him, following his trip to the Tour of Utah last month. Got third on one of the stages there as well. Velasco. Just dropping to the back is Elmar Renders. It's been a long afternoon for him as part of the leading group throughout the stage. This is where the favourites are loitering. Hiding among the wheels, the big favourites. Well, no need for them to do anything at the front. The Mitchelton Scott riders are represented in the lead group, the Breakaway. But Daryl Impey was just on the left of your picture there at the front. De Vreese there, just having a little look down. Doesn't look as if he's got any problem with his gears, and certainly looks as if he's still got plenty in his legs here. Getting onto the wheel of Velasco. Having a rummage around in his pockets to see if there's any last-minute energy gels to keep him going and see him through towards the finish. Nicky Terpstra there, number 201. Crashed out of the Tour de France earlier in the summer. One of the big names in this field, Nicky Terpstra. In the autumn of his career now. The Dutchman. But it's an impressive Palmares that he carries around with him. Tour of Flanders last year, Paris-Roubaix in 2014. And a few other races as well, particularly on these roads of Belgium. made that move away from the De Koning quick step setup, Terpstra for Total Direct Energy, looking to have the opportunity as the team leader, knowing they would ride for him. It certainly didn't work out for him, unfortunately, at the Tour this year. Ackermann's team en masse. Prudence required here for this 90-degree left-hander on what is still a slightly greasy surface, that dangerous time when it's drying out but still wet in quite a lot of places. For David van der Poel there at the back. He's been in exactly the same place in the peloton for quite a while now. Good, yeah, I should think he'll be relieved there are others willing to take it on at the front now, enabling him to just regroup a little bit at the back. He was a prominent contributor. This one just rising 35 metres, 400 metres long, Sollenberg. This is the final registered climb, the final one of 12, Sollenberg. As the race winds its way back up towards Brussels. 152nd kilometre of the race now. And the gap steady. It's around 50 seconds, give or take a couple either side of it. Keeps varying slightly. Alejandro Osorio Carvajal from Nippo Vinivantini. Van der Poel clinging on. Stage winner in the Tour of Alsace last year, David van der Poel. 2:47. Is Ludwig Wacker from the Sunweb development team. Van Biersel Castle, some beautiful castles and properties dotted across the Belgian landscape. But without these glorious helicopter shots, we would be largely unaware if we are just at road level with the cyclists. Still maintaining the same advantage as the kilometres are steadily clicking by. Long way to the finish though, 37k. We're heading for a wet finish in Brussels as well at the moment. That's never ideal, is it? Crossings on a 90-degree left-hander, slightly downhill, all that paint. Luckily not too slippery at the moment. Bringing up the rear is Elmer Renders from Roompot. Karasay having a little look round. From the Israel Cycling Academy, that's him in the white and the pale blue. .36 kilometres remaining through Lot. Heading next for St. Peter's Leu. Little note for the riders as well. Next big roundabout they come to, they've got to go around the right-hand side in order to turn left. Little reminder to them coming from the race radio. Ackerman just tucked in behind his teammates. Jay Desert just bringing a few up as well. The left-hand side of the road. Here's the roundabout we were just referring to. Almost a wrong turning there. It was interesting watching the U-turn done by Loris Ruille from Corendon Circus. He suddenly just appeared on the pavement against the race route to avoid jumping back across the curb, but now back onto the rear end as the pace continues to wind up here. Just watch this here. I thought he decided he'd had enough and he was just going to turn around and ride off home or somewhere else, but no. Quick Yui in front of one of the team cars and away he goes, back into the race. A miscue without consequences, fortunately for him, and a bidon to help him on his way. Beautiful setting there. Might look absolutely gorgeous when it's in full bloom in the summer. Into the final 33 kilometres of this race, though. We've still got a leading group, as we have had all day. Originally 7 riders, then down to 6 and 5, joined by half a dozen others now. gap of just under 40 seconds to the front of the race. Velasco just moves out of the way, which means that one of the Rumpot riders was going to head to the front momentarily, that being Elmer Renders, as we head back to the main field here. Got a first sighting of Caleb Ewan, actually, just in behind the Bora Hansgrohe riders. And UAE Emirates and Alexander Kristoff as well. I can just see him too. Two of the big favourites just slowly moving up through the peloton. It's a confident peloton, a peloton that feels in control of the situation here. Not everyone keen to watch the bike race go past, clearly, including those two horses in the field. But good to see some encouragement from a few of the locals heading to the end of their driveways. Ludwig de Winter there was the rider taking a look to his right-hand side, the Monty Gobert rider at the back of the peloton. 32 remaining. Heading from St. Peter's-Leu towards Halle. And we do appear to be heading for a sprinting showdown here at the moment. That's what the smart money would be on here. Pace goes up again, peloton stringing out. Another injection of pace this time, I think mostly from Bora Hansgrohe. And De Koning Quickstep very well represented. Remember, they've got Yves Lampaert and Alvaro Hodge in their lineup. Ilio Kesa doing much of the work. Dries Devenijns is there too. Samuel Gaze, Yannick Steimler and Florian Seneschal completing their lineup today. As we ride with the rear end of the Breakaway group. And Karise from Israel Cycling Academy. Well, it's a twisty old route at this point, but these riders won't exactly be out of sight, out of mind. They're out of sight, but within reach. And here come the Hungary pack. Just half a minute in it now. This famous old one-day race. Quite an illustrious list of former winners of what was the Paris-Brussels race for so long. And the gap coming down all the time now that there's been a real acceleration. and the front of the peloton really are going through the gears, as it were, in pursuit of these riders at the front. They're looking to set up a sprint royale at the end as they head through Halle. I do think it won't be too long before the lead group are finally reeled in here by these chasers. Dries Devenens, the latest rider from De Koning Quick-Step. And he looks comfortable, doesn't he, relatively speaking, as he dishes it out to everybody else on the front of the peloton. And two riders from Gazprom on the ground, and one of those riders is Kilukov, who was in the breakaway earlier on. That's the second, no, it's Vladislav Kilukov. Kulikov there, one of those who has gone down. And wind clearly taken from the sails of one of his teammates. Can't quite see who that is, but at least good to see them both back up on their feet. But their race is done for the day in any meaningful sense. Alexander Porsev is the other one. Well, that's a painful way for a day's work to end, and Devenens continues to just tap out that powerful rhythm on the front of the peloton. Clément Carisset, determined to stay out at the front for as long as possible, down to 20 seconds. As they do everything they can to avoid the cobblestones. Rarely has a gutter been so inviting on either side of a road. So that gap coming down all the time, and he's causing quite a lot of the damage there. The 36-year-old. There's so much quality throughout the De Koning squad. Even those whose job it is primarily to set others up on days such as this. Bora Hansgrohe is still very, very well represented, though, right at the front of the peloton. Haven't seen so much of the Groupama FDJ team of Arnaud Demar for a little while, but as I mentioned a few minutes back, definitely Caleb Ewan and I think Alexander Kristoff are up towards the front. Really, really strung out now, the peloton. A lot of damage been done by that acceleration in the last few minutes. And the race is really on here. And the workload now being shared out. But a lot of damage done there by that acceleration, primarily from De Koning Quick-Step. Light rain steadily falling at the finish here at the moment. So the riders have got that to look forward to. Just adds a little treacherous element to the closing stages of the race. And we're actually hearing it's down to 15 seconds, actually. Whatever it is, it's closing. And it's closing quite quickly. Well, a race that has been won by sprinters so many times over the years, including in recent times with Ackermann last year, Arnaud Demar in 2017, Tom Bonen, a winner twice in recent years, Dylan Groenewegen, Andre Greipel twice, Robbie McEwen, a 5-time winner since the turn of the century as well. That's the all-time record for this race. But we have 3 former winners here in the race today in Ackermann, de Mar and Greipel. I think it's a big ask for Greipel to get up there at the end, but Ackermann and de Mar maybe, who knows. I think they just about dried out from the last rain shower, and the heavens have opened on the peloton once again. Sky's looking a little brighter, but it's a brighter shade of grey. Can't say any more than that here at the finish. Still raining. I've seen a few crashes in the finishing straight actually in recent years in this race. Hope for nothing like that this time, even though it's a wide, straight boulevard. Some tired legs out there in the sprint for the line. It's a strength-sapping finish, even though it looks fairly benign. Dries Devenijns has got a bit more left in the tank, and he's going to deliver it out onto the road on behalf of his teammates. Into the last 25 kilometres. One of cycling's oldest races. Looks a little bit different now to the race that took place in the past, but still has its place in the calendar and still attracts some of the top riders. And the race breaking up that acceleration, just causing a good number of riders to be spat out the back of the peloton. Just losing touch now, their job pretty much done for the day. And we're heading for the business end of the race. 26 seconds the gap from the leading group. Conditions less than ideal, but nothing the peloton isn't used to. There's Daryl Impey moving up on the left-hand side of your picture in the predominantly white jersey. What a summer he's had. The previous wear of the yellow jersey in the Tour de France in years gone by, and a stage winner in Brioude this year. A tremendous result. Decent tour for Mitchelton Scott actually. A couple of stage wins for Simon Yates as well. Sagan doing a strong turn at the front of the peloton. See Gautier, they're just squinting through the rain. Really feeling it now, not surprised. It's been a long time at the front of the race for the likes of Gautier, Renders and Rezebeek of Rumpot Charles. That's the first peloton. And following the split, there's what remains of the rest of it. Brussels now very much on the horizon here with 23 kilometres to go. Just through Pepingen. A few kilometres away from the outskirts of the capital city. Well, that second group, the gap will just open up completely to that one. It's the first group we need to keep an eye on here, behind the leaders. Devenijns continuing to do an enormous amount of strong riding here, dragging the peloton along. Easing Sagan's workload. Andre Greipel up there. Can he put himself in contention once more? He was third 2 years ago and the winner in 2013 and 2014. Well, it has more of the look of a spring classic, doesn't it? This looks like March or April rather than the first week of September. Anthony Tergis on the front for Total Direct Energy. That was Gauthier just popping his head over the shoulder of Leerpins. He's quite a short, squat figure though, isn't he, Gauthier? You're not going to get much protection in the wind when you're riding behind him and he's at the front of the race. Clément Carisset still with the energy to contribute, as he has done throughout the day. Still battling hard, gritting their teeth and hanging in there at the front of proceedings. But still 20 kilometres from the finish. Facial expression doesn't change too much, does it, for Devenants on the front? Just looks serious, concentrated, businesslike. But what strength in those legs. Staying at around 20 seconds, the gap. How much has he got left? How long can he sit there? Heading into the last 20 kilometres of the race now. And this is where they're really going to kick on. Others will start to join in and share the workload, I think, before too long. Still plenty of riders who would feel that they are in contention. Actually, that split in the peloton looks as if it might rejoin once again, the second group. It's rather strung out still, the back half of the peloton, but they certainly haven't given up the chase. To me like Davide Gaburo from Neri Sottoli, one of those up towards the front, just trying to bridge the gap to get back to the peloton. Won't be much time to catch your breath though, with the race very much on now. Still 25, 26 seconds the gap. Slick sheen on the roads thanks to the steady rain that continues to fall. Light rain here at the finishing line. Just outside the National Stadium. Not far from the Atomium, we're just a stone's throw from where the Grand Départ was held for this year's Tour de France. We had the first stage and then the team time trial. A celebration that weekend of 50th anniversary of the first Tour de France victory for Eddy Merckx. was fated everywhere he went throughout the weekend, and rightly so. See one or two just grabbing a quick bite, hoping to see them through these important strength-sapping closing kilometres of the race. Ackermann's team are well up for this. Hodge and Ackermann must both be feeling good as the workload shared between De Koning Quickstep in the blue and the Bora Hansgrohe lineup. Well, it's a day for brollies and bike racing. Pretty used to both in this part of the world. Well, it's a sprint to stay remotely in contention for many riders. Look how spread out that peloton is. It's an awfully long way from the front to the back. And this is the first sighting we've had of the front of the race for quite some time now, as we catch a glimpse of Simone Velasco safely negotiating that corner. And the young Italian leads the breakaway group. That's Chris Jensen, the Dane, who races for the Australian Mitchelton Scott squad, in behind him. Still looking relatively comfortable given the circumstances, but here come the peloton. And David Irons has decided that he's got a bit more left in the tank. He's going to have another go. His job still not quite done for the day. Still plenty to race for, of course, between now and the end of the season, not least at the moment elsewhere. You've got the Vuelta, the Tour of Britain starting today, and the World Road Race Championships coming up in the final week of the month in Harrogate in the United Kingdom. I think we can look forward to big crowds to that one. And some really good classics-style racing. But we've got a fast finish coming up here now to this Brussels Cycling Classic, as we momentarily race at the back of the peloton with Fabien Grelier of Total Direct Energy. And now we go back to the pointy bit at the front. Well, the race is going to come back together fairly soon. Splits developing, strung out all the way down the road. Just 15k remaining now. Almost into the outskirts of Brussels. Head in via Anderlecht. Just 2 or 3 minutes away, I think, from that area. Look at the jostling for position there. Riders being dropped out of the peloton all the time. Everyone's safely round that, which is great to see. Some more from the rear half of the peloton now. Making a steady turn. Hopefully we'll get back to the front of the race in just a second or two. But the racing is high, and it's really had an effect in the last half an hour or so. This is Jules Jensen. Velasco He's looking lively, Velasco, and as you can see now, it is almost coming back together. The front of the peloton just behind the leading group. And for some of these riders, they've been ahead at the front of the race pretty much since the start. But they will have known the likely outcome. But a worthy effort nonetheless. Sunweb with a couple of riders going out the back of the peloton, we're hearing. Caution shown here. The treacherous conditions. Everyone upright and back on the chase. And Anthony Turgis decides that he wants to be the last man standing from this breakaway, if at all possible. It's a last act of defiance, perhaps, from him. Just as that gap was about to be closed, an acceleration from the Frenchman. Remember, he's got a teammate who'll be hoping to be there or thereabouts at the end of this race in Nicolo Bonifacio. Turgis, a teammate of Nicky Terpstra as well, one of the big name riders here in this field. We just saw Chris Berkmans going out the back of the group there, the Vital concept rider. Just hanging off the back is Ivan Santoromita. Just when the legs are tied, throw a few cobbles in. With the obligatory rainfall to add a slippery sheen to the road surface. Can't lapse in concentration for a second here on these roads. So a breakaway that at one point had just over 3 minutes advantage over the main field has now been finally brought to a close, just 12 kilometers from the finish of this race. Emil Jensen able to pick his own line through the puddles. Turgis is right behind him. But that gap has finally been closed, and it was Ilio Keiser and Dries Devenens who did a lot of that. There's the training complex for the Anderlecht Football Club. Now managed by Vincent Kompany, the former Manchester City player. And long-time Belgian international, of course, who's gone back this summer. Hodge's teammates are absolutely burying themselves here in pursuit of victory today. So De Koning Quick-Step well represented, Bora Hansgrohe as well, and the race is pretty spread out. Back in the distance, they really are strung out here, with a lot of riders struggling to hold the pace at the front of the peloton now. And the group really starting to thin out. Plenty still in contention though. 10 kilometers remaining. Heading into the western side of Brussels. It won't go through the centre of the city. Heads across from the west to the northwest. Finish just inside the ring road, outside the National Stadium. Peloton really splitting into pieces here, though. A lot of riders just trying to close the gap to the wheel in front of them to just bring the front group back together once more. There's still time for them to put themselves back in contention. Pressure unrelenting. Pace high. Race on the line. Finish rapidly approaching. Well, that's not a great sight for De Koning. That's Alvaro Hodge. So Alvaro Hodge has had a problem at the most inopportune moment there, but De Koning Quick-Step still pressing on, so one assumes that it would all be for Yves Lampaert now in the closing stages of this one. And an errant driver forced off the road in the nick of time as the front of the race heads past. So De Koning Quick-Step, it would seem, are going to have to go to plan B. But still pressing on at the front. Little word in the ear there from the team car. That's Yannick Stemmler at the front at the moment. Seneschal is up there, Lampaert as well. Caleb Ewan up towards the front. Tim Merlier of Corendon Circus is there too. 84 Roberto Ferrari from UAE. And Oliver Naesen for AG2R. UAE Emirates with cards to play. That's Christoph's team. Well, looking to see if I can spot Caleb Ewan in there, the diminutive figure of the little Australian. Think he's in the leading group. Just minutes away from the finish. The rain almost stopping now in the Belgian capital. Just in time for the arrival of the leading riders here in the Brussels Cycling Classic. And we're heading for a spectacular sprint for the line. Caleb Ewan is in there in the front group. So Ewan still in contention. Yannick Steimler looks to move up on the left-hand side of your picture, but he's just getting muscled out of it at the moment. Jules Jensen, who is in the breakaway group, hasn't given up. They've got Daryl Impey still in there. As we look at Ramon Sinkeldam, number 56 there from Groupama. Number 102 is Tim Merlier, the Belgian national champion. He's still in there at the front of the race. So the cards for De Koning now do not include Hodge, the young Colombian, who's had a mechanical issue at precisely the wrong moment. That's the National Basilica of the Sacred Heart. And the tourist literature here says it's the 5th largest church in the world, rising to 89 metres above the ground, towering high over the leading riders at the moment here at the end of this Brussels Cycling Classic. 4.3 kilometres remaining. Just about to go through Ganshoren as well. Vincent Kompany's father is the mayor of Ganshoren. It's on the route here, any moment now. So many split-second decisions being made by the riders here in the closing stages. There's Caleb Ewan to the right of your picture, the Lotto Soudal rider. Ewan has just had a little bit of time to regroup following the end of the Tour de France when he won 3 stages, including the finish in Paris at the end of the race. Didn't go so well at the Prudential Ride London Surrey Classic a week later. No surprise there, but back in better form and morale today. Last 3K now for this leading group. Ewan is very well placed here. Ackermann well placed as well. I think Greipel is in the group. Trek Segafredo, Jasper Stuyven, their big name rider here in this race today. Just looking to see if Groupama are up there for Arnaud Demar. Ewan staying in the middle of the road, in behind the wheels. Okay, Samsic have got a couple of riders up there. That implies that Greipel is still in contention here, but has he got the finishing kick? The final kilometre, a long, straight, slightly uphill road here. In the northwest of Brussels, 2.5 kilometres remaining. Last couple of K. Trams pulling over to the side of the road. Race rapidly approaching. And a sprint for the line just a minute or two away. So many times over the years it comes down to a sprint. And that's exactly what we've got here. Who's got the power, who's got the pace, who's also got the patience here to time their effort to perfection. The finish will look tantalisingly close throughout that final kilometre. Ackermann well placed. He's got 2 teammates just in front of him. Rudiger Selig is one of them. I think it's Selig at the front of the peloton at the moment. We're looking at Michael Schwartzman. Schwartzman really digging deep. Daryl Impey is right behind him. Into the final kilometre now of the Brussels Cycling Classic. As Chris Jules Jensen drops out of the back of that leading group, but Daryl Impey working hard, and he's working hard for his teammate. Caden Groves is right on his wheel, so Daryl Impey has got Groves on his wheel for Mitchelton Scott. Groupama FDJ with riders still in there. Really has thinned out here, this leading group. Well, let's hope on these slippery road conditions everybody stays upright. And we have A sprint to remember here at the end of this race. Caleb Ewan on the left of your picture, about 4 riders back. He's well placed, but plenty in front of him. Pascal Ackermann now just settles in. As here they come into the finishing straight. It's a long, long sprint for the line. And Pascal Ackermann now hits the front. Pascal Ackermann leads the way. Ackermann's going for 2 wins in a row here. Is he going to get it once more? It's a long, long way to the finish. I'm not sure whether he is, as Caleb Ewan challenges right on the line. It was desperately close. Fanned out right across the road. Ackermann looked as if he might have got it, but then Caleb Ewan came on strong on one side of the road. There was a challenge on the other side as well. But Caleb Ewan fired the afterburners, I think at just the right time, as he did on 3 occasions in the Tour de France. Hand to his ear, just waiting to hear whether it was he who took the victory at the end of this race. But Ewan waited to unleash that powerful sprint, left it as long as he could, and Ackermann maybe just hit the front too early. It was too long to stay there and to keep everybody else at bay. But Caleb Ewan, following in the wheel tracks of Robbie McEwen, the record 5-time winner of this race. And it is another Australian success. An excellent ride once again by Tim Merlier, the Belgian national champion.
On your left right side.
Let's have a look at this sprint once again. Well, what a close finish that was. Caleb Ewan, though, just taking it on the line. This will show it here. Pascal Ackermann, as you look there, is about 5th in line. Ewan a little bit further back. That was a good position for him to be in. You don't want to hit the front too early in a sprint like this. The rest of the peloton will be heading in shortly, but there's Caleb Ewan, number 21 there. About half a dozen riders from the front as we look down on this sprint once again. There was frustration there for the Belgian champion. All fell apart for him in the final few hundred metres. Ackermann goes to the front at this point, and look, Caleb Ewan is still 4th. He's still got ground to make up. Jasper Stuyven is in 2nd place, and the rider from Astana is Davide Ballerini in the pale blue. But look at Ewan there. Beautifully timed. The challenge there, coming on the left-hand side of the road, was from Jasper Philipsen. I could see there was a rider on the opposite side of the road to Caleb Ewan who threw his bike forward. So keep an eye on the rider on the right there from UAE Philipsen. But it is Caleb Ewan who gets the stage victory. Ackermann could see the line, almost winning for the 2nd year in a row. But Ewan, he had the right wheel. He followed the right wheel, Pascal Ackermann. And there, only in the closing moments did he hit the front. What a close finish there between Caleb Ewan and Jasper Philipsen. That's how close it was. Ackermann, by the looks of things, taking 2nd place. Stuyven still up there, but whether Philipsen managed to take 3rd, we wait for the official confirmation. Tremendous sprint. Just a stone's throw from the iconic Atomium here in the Belgian capital. A little bit wetter and cooler than when the Tour de France staged the Grand Départ here. We had the team time trial finishing underneath the Atomium at the beginning of July. But an excellent finish to the Brussels Cycling Classic. And a very worthy winner as well, Caleb Ewan. So we're hopefully going to hear from the winner shortly.
A strange moment
day in the
interview
saddle.
zone.
Here's the winner,
Everybody
Caleb
was
Ewan.
doubting who won. Then they were saying Jasper Philipsen won the race, and then we got the finish photo, and it was clear you won the race.
Yeah, I crossed the line and I didn't know if I had won or not. But yeah, it was really close. I think with a lot of guys in the end, but I didn't actually feel so good, and it's actually a really hard run up into the line, you know. And yeah, luckily I just had that little bit extra in the end, and I could sprint the last 100 meters pretty well.
How difficult was it to survive those last 20 Ks, that final in the rain? I was just behind the bunch. It was like crazy work.
Yeah, you know, like all day I didn't feel so good actually, and I was really struggling on a lot of the climbs. But yeah, in the end, I think once the adrenaline and stuff kicks in, then I was feeling all right, and the team did a great job to keep me in the front in the you know, the tight moments there with the small roads and everything. So yeah, you know, they did a great job, and thanks to them. And yeah, luckily, like I said, I just had the legs in the end.
One victory here is wonderful. 4 more to equal your countryman Robbie McEwen.
Oh yeah, it was my first time here and first win, so yeah, hopefully I can win more in the future and equal Robbie's record there.
Thank you very much.
Well, great result there for Robbie McEwen, and what a season he is having. McEwen with those 3 stage wins in the Tour de France, and stage winner in the Giro as well this year, and the victor on his first visit to the Brussels Cycling Classic. There is the Stade Roi Baudouin, which hosted Grand Prix Athletics less than 24 hours ago, a Diamond League meeting. And today, right outside the stadium, hosted this sprint finish with Pascal Ackermann. Had a little bit of daylight, trying to close him down. Was Beppu of Trek Segafredo. But what a finish from Caleb Ewan. It's all about timing, and he threw the bike at precisely the right moment. But an excellent sprint as well by Philipsen. Blanket finish. Clearly a win for the Australian, but they're doing a little bit of sorting out just to confirm the race order. And here it is, Caleb Ewan. We knew that he'd won. Pascal Ackermann, last year's winner, has to settle for 2nd place. Jasper Philipsen, an excellent 3rd. Davide Ballerini in 4th, and Fumiyuki Beppu, who's been around for a long, long time, taking an excellent 5th. Arnaud Demar, a previous winner of this race, having to settle for 6th, and Alexander Christophe down in 7th. So wet and soggy Brussels, still providing us with a sprint of the highest quality, and it was a little bit of a mixed bag at the end. The race had split up, a case of who was there. Many of the riders who we thought are going to be there were still in for the sprint right at the end, and riders will be crossing the line for a little time yet. Almost 4.5 hours in the saddle, and already over 8 minutes behind the winner. Although many of these riders, of course, had jobs to do to try and get the big names towards the front at the most important time in the race. A couple of the Novo Nordisk team doing a little 2-man team time trial heading up towards the finish here. But Caleb Ewan, well, just saying there in the interview that he wasn't feeling great today, which can't be good news for everybody else. If Caleb Ewan's not feeling great, he still beats them. And encouraging, I think, as well for the organisers to hear that I think he has every intention of coming back in the future, but a lot of work to be done if he's to come close to equaling his compatriot Robbie McEwen's all-time record, 5 wins. Here are the highlights of the race today. This breakaway group got away right near the start of proceedings and managed to stay away for most of the day. They were joined by this little chase group. It was one of those breakaways that wasn't really given too much leeway, never gained more than 3 minutes over the peloton, so you could tell that this race in all likelihood was going to end in a sprint. But nonetheless, it was a sturdy and stubborn effort. and Oscar Riesebeek and Elmer Renders from Rumpot Schal were two of the riders in the breakaway group. Clément Carisset, Etienne Van Empel, Cyril Gauthier and Lionel Tamignot also there. Peter Rikunov of Gazprom, but he didn't last too long because he crashed and ended up going back to the peloton. Autumnal weather conditions, the longer the race went on, alternating between heavy showers and dry roads, but increasingly wet in the closing stages. But the peloton always had the leading riders in sight. They closed the gap with a little over 10 kilometers remaining to set up what we were all expecting, although it was a smaller sprint in many respects than perhaps we might have expected. Pascal Ackermann there, managing to stay upright, hitting the front, as it turned out, just slightly too early. Caleb Ewan hiding among the wheels, suddenly popping up on the left of your screen in the closing meters as Jasper Philipsen on the right lunged at the same time. Ackermann holding on for second place. So it's Caleb Ewan on the right, Ackermann there in the black and blue at the front. But just watch 81 on the left as well, Philipsen, and it was a good finish from him. Strong sprint as riders threw the bikes at the line across the whole width of the road here. Caleb Ewan, the winner. Pascal Ackermann, last year's victor, in second place this time. Jasper Philipsen in third. Arnaud Demar, a previous winner of this race, down in sixth. Alexander Kristoff in seventh. And Caden Groves, an excellent ride for him, for Mitchelton Scott, finishing in 10th. So two Australians in the top 10. So we've heard from Caleb Ewan, the winner of today's race. Let's hear from the Belgian rider Jasper Philipsen, who was
Gefeliciteerd met
third.
de sprint, want dat was wel een hele goede sprint. Je kwam hier binnen in dat tentje, ik zei het net ook al tegen Caleb Ewan. En toen gaan voor jou gewonnen. Enfin, de mensen zeiden niet, ja, Philipsen wint. Geloofde jij erin of dacht jij, nee jongens, dit is
So
echt niet
people were
mogelijk?
saying that
Ja, het
people
was al sinds heel
suggested that
net,
you'd
maar
actually won the race.
nee, ik had niet echt het gevoel dat het naar mijn
it was
kant
really
toe
close.
draaide. Maar ja, ik wist wel dat het niet zo heel veel scheelde. En
I
dat
didn't really
echt
have
op
the
de
feeling
tijd
that was
aankwam.
working well.
Je bent eigenlijk dan de beste sprinter in de ploeg, hier vandaag dan
didn't
toch
miss the
tenminste.
victory by much.
En op een paar kilometer van de streep zei ik, Philipsen zit voor Christophe, die gaat de sprint aantrekken. Was dat de bedoeling en hadden jullie dat dan beter niet andersom gedaan?
Ja, inderdaad. Dat was normaal gezien de
you were in front
bedoeling.
of
Maar
Christophe,
we
was that
raakten
the
elkaar een
plan?
beetje kwijt in de finale ook. En ik moest nog van ver komen,
So
maar
we lost the
dan
wheels a little
lanceerde ik
bit.
en ik zat met snelheid. En
I needed to come from a
ja,
long
ik denk
way
dat
back.
op die moment was het echt moeilijk om gewoon nog één kaart te trekken.
But I had
en
the
dan
speed
zijn we gewoon alle
to
twee
pull
onze
it
kans
through
gegaan.
to the
Did
finish
you
line.
experience this hard Brussels Cycling Classic due to the rain?
It was first time for me, and it was with the weather conditions make it a bit more hard, and I was nervous on the climbs. But in the end, there was a reduced bunch sprint, I guess, and not with the highest speed anymore, but some power, and we just missed it for the victory. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Jasper Philipsen, ik geef het nog even mee.
Well, what a talent he is. Just 21 years of age, Philipsen, the Belgian, stage winner in the Tour Down Under earlier this year, and very consistent in the recent Bink Bank Tour as well. He got second, third and fourth on stages in that race, and he's got a place on the podium here today in this one as well. As we take a look at one of the most prominent buildings in Brussels, the familiar shape architecturally of the European Commission. We really are in the heartland of the European Union here. And just a stone's throw away there, that building you can see behind the trees is the European Parliament. So will we admire the sights of Brussels? Hopefully we'll be able to hear from last year's winner, Pascal Ackermann, who went very, very close to making it a double this time round. Ackermann in the lead into the closing meters of the race, but just pipped to the line. He's got himself another podium finish, though. And here he is now.
Pascal Ackermann, second place. You started the sprint. Was it a question of timing?
Yeah, I think I was a bit too early, but yeah, I had to go because I came with a lot of speed, and yeah, I just had to go to the finish, and yeah, in the end I can say it was too early. Yeah.
The team did a fantastic job. They controlled the whole final, so it was like more or less a perfect lead out, or do you see it differently?
No, I think the team did a perfect job from beginning on today, and we stayed all day long in front, and it was really important with all the slippery corners in the final. And yeah, I'm really happy about the performance of the team, and also the reload was good. Just I lost a bit. I just went too early today.
You sprinted against Caleb Ewan, Philipsen. It was like a royal sprint, 6 sprinters in a row or on a row. Sprint of the future also.
Yeah, I think so, and I didn't expect that I'm on the podium. I was already in the bus and took a shower, and then I said I have to come here because I was second. It was so close in the end. Yeah, and we are happy with the second place today.
Thank you very much, Pascal.
Well, he's a real consistent performer, isn't he, Pascal Ackermann? He's got an impressive palmarès already for a rider at 25, a couple of stage wins in the Giro this year, won the Prudential Ride London Surrey Classic last year, Eschborn-Frankfurt this year, this race a year ago. Just pipped to the line. Got a stage win in his home Deutschland Tour as well at the back end of August, and third in the European Continental Road Race Championship. That race won by Elia Viviani early in August. So Ackermann didn't seem too unhappy with his day's work. Another strong result for him, and a strong performance from his team as well, who couldn't really have done much more on the day to put him in the best position. But as he suggested in the interview, just hit the front a little bit too early. Just look how far back here Caleb Ewan is. He is the 5th rider in line, just tucked in. Ewan hanging in there, leaving it as late as possible. But it's such an impressive ride on the left-hand side of the screen there by Jasper Philipsen. He was right, he did have to come from a long way back. He also had a really good wheel to follow, the wheel of Arnaud Demar there in the blue and white. And it all came down to the lunge. The lunge a bit too early there from Demar. That cost him. He ended up in 6th place, but goodness me, it wasn't by much. All smiles after a hard but successful day at the office. And there's Philipsen, 3rd today. I think we'll see him on plenty of podiums in the future. Real great depth of sprinting in world cycling now, and a lot of new faces. Been a real changing of the guard the last couple of years. Pascal Ackermann, 1 step down from where he was 12 months ago. But it was a worthy defence of his crown won in 2018. His super summer on 2 wheels continues. Caleb Ewan, one of the stars of the Tour de France, with 3 stage wins. Victorious here in Brussels on his first visit to this race. There's another one for the sideboard. It'll take up quite a bit of room. Still got some way to go to match his compatriot, Robbie McEwen, who is the all-time record holder. 5 victories in this race over the years. He'll be back, and don't be surprised if he's standing there again at some point in the future. What a talent there, Jasper Philipsen. Had the legs to be in front of his teammate there, the highly decorated Alexander Kristoff, who finished 7th. And the champagne moment. If Caleb Ewan can get the lid off, get the cork out. And the celebrations start now. Great sprint, close finish. And another excellent winner to add to the list of victors in this famous old race. First held way back in 1893. It's had a few breaks over the years, a few little gaps, but it's still going. And there is your podium for 2019. Caleb Ewan from Australia, Germany's Pascal Ackermann, and Jasper Philipsen, the Belgian rider. Will he be getting used to posing like that these days, Caleb Ewan? What a blisteringly fast sprinter he is. So there we are. There's confirmation of the top 10 before we go. Caleb Ewan then the winner by half a wheel from Pascal Ackermann, who just edged out Jasper Philipsen into third place. Do hope you've enjoyed our coverage of this soggy edition of the Brussels Cycle Classic. We thought it would come down to a sprint. It most certainly did. And it was Australia's day once again. But for now, thank you for watching, and it's goodbye.